Hello,
Hi,
how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, thanks. Lee should join us shortly with
Okay,
what was he talking about? Oh yeah, he was experimenting with some GDK in a box to
okay. Yeah, I saw that he was doing something.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I think, can I share the screen? If
Yeah, sure.
so, I was working on this label issue. Let me show that.
Yeah.
Uh, where when a label is invalid, or let me send it to the chat.
Hi Lee, hi James, hi Andrew.
Hello, hello.
Hey James, hey Andrew.
Hello, hello, hello. There we go.
Hello.
Full house today then.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so many people.
So,
Should we just give everyone the opportunity to see if there is anything that you'd like to work on? I was going to hijack the session to work on improving the GDK in a box, as I'm calling it. But if anyone has anything that they would like to us to focus on, then speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, Shivam, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Was just showing me something he was working on.
Awesome.
this was the issue. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to work. Like it was assigned to me 2 weeks before. So I got stuck with some of my personal stuff, so couldn't look at it properly. So I was working with this and just managed to do this. So the code that was it wanted to know that the label that is being used for a comment in a GitLab, these comments, whether it is valid or not, and if it is invalid, then we need to provide a feedback. So telling that the comment is not allowed, or the label in the comment is not allowed, something like that.
Hmm.
So this was what I had done. I created a function.
Hmm.
Is the screen visible properly?
Yep.
Okay. So this was the comment. The previous change was where the function is. Yeah, here. So this was something which was already suggested in the comments. So I used it as it is. This one. So I used it here as the same way, and the function was something like this: that if the current the label provided or the event provided, if it doesn't if it is present, or if it is not present in the labels that are being applied here in this one, so we need to show the message the provided labels are invalid, something like that.
Hmm.
So I was working with this one, but yeah, I don't know if the approach is correct or not. So wanted to know first that, and also was working with the test cases, so couldn't get myself around this writing the test cases also. So yeah, might use some suggestions how I can improve the code base here. I
Uh,
can share the repository also. Actually, I got the community developer access, and yeah, there I received one like tryouts. Yeah, this one.
mm-hmm.
So here 798. This is the repository. Okay. So yeah, this is the repository which where I was using, where I've like provided this code. So also let me know what I'm doing wrong here.
Cool. Um, Marco, did you want to take the lead, or like, do you want to check out the branch and sort of poke around and?
Yeah, sure can. Let me just find.
Oh, sorry, I didn't provide the file, exact file. Okay, just let me go to
Oh,
the
no worries.
file.
I'm just trying to see where I have my triage-ops project because it's been a while since I last used it.
Okay, okay. So, okay,
Did
related.
you I see that you pushed the branch up. Did you create a merge request yet?
No, no, I haven't created a merge request.
So I would recommend you create a merge request.
Okay.
And that means that we can, any kind of comments we want to make on the code or discussions we want to have, or we can share the video link recording afterwards. It's
Okay.
just a nice place for us to kind of have any conversations or add any notes after today's session.
Okay.
Yep.
Understood.
Just close
So,
a couple of
okay. I think I still have to like write the test cases for this implementation, but yeah, I'll still.
It's fine to exactly raise it as a draft, and you don't even need to put any details on the description yet, just so we've got somewhere to have conversations. And yeah, did you? I think you saw you had some of those changes you haven't pushed as well. Did you want to maybe just push those, even though I appreciate that they're unfinished, but it means that Marco or whoever can pull down that branch, and we can just kind of, make some suggestions and talk through the code.
Yep. And I have I just checked out the branch so I can.
Sorry, Shivan, this commit won't go through because the first letter has to be capitalized.
I think it'll get squashed
Yeah.
eventually anyway. And I don't know
I thought
if
the hook would block it.
I don't know if the triage-ops project
It
is
doesn't
as
have.
fussy as the main GitHub
Oh, I
one.
see.
It
Hopefully,
didn't
it's
block the previous
Okay.
one
Forget
actually.
about it.
I think you can like it is here in the if okay merge request pipeline is still running. I don't know. Okay.
I know, James, you probably work on the GitLab
I
UI
haven't seen this
project.
this project at all. Sorry.
Fair enough. No.
My bad. Yeah, GitLab UI is way pickier.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's even more fussy, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
surprised
getting
time I
those
write a
like
commit, I
I
have to
can
look up the
easily
documentation.
create like push the data on the like repository. Something I'm doing wrong here.
No, that all looks
That's
good.
that looked okay, didn't it? I think that said it was successful.
Yeah, that's okay. I was able to pull down the.
Perfect. If you want to stop sharing your screen, Marco can share his screen and just talk us through. Like on the surface, I only sort of caught a glimpse of what you were pointing at there, but I think everything looks pretty much on the right track. So there might just be a few best practice things that we suggest, maybe we'll just provide a patch, a diff or something at the end, and we can go from there.
Camera quality is not that good. Sorry for that.
No, not at all.
So just to have an overview of the changes that you already have in place. I'm
Yeah,
looking.
yeah. So I was working with this test case only. I was writing this test case and I had written the code below. Yeah, this one. So
Mhm.
yeah, I was working with the test case and I wanted to understand whether the implementation that I have done is correct or not. So yeah, that's
Okay,
what.
no, that's great. It's great. So,
Okay, so let's also open the
yep,
common
sounds good.
label spec. So this is the test case that you added.
Yes, yes, that's one. Provide a feedback for invalid label in a comment.
Exactly. So first thing, these include examples. Basically, if you search for this one, event is not applicable. It should be somewhere here. Or
I think it's going to be in a shared spec file because event is not applicable is something that's available for all specs.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see if we can find it.
So what I'm interested, I can't remember exactly how this processor works, but I'm interested in like, because you could have a scenario where none of the labels that you've asked to be added are added. You could have a scenario where some of them can be added, and a scenario where all of them could be added. I feel like there's kind of three scenarios there. And I'm not sure if, because the applicable method doesn't, I don't feel like that's quite right in this scenario, because the applicable method is a black and white, a yes or no. And I would say that in this scenario, if they've supplied at least one applicable label, I think you would want applicable to return true, even if there's some that aren't applicable. And then I think in the process method is where we would then filter them further and say, okay, well, we applied these ones, but didn't apply these ones. I mean, does that echo your thoughts, Marco? Or?
Yes, because I'm looking at the applicable method on that processor, and it makes sure that there is at least one valid label to be applied.
Perfect.
Because any labels to apply checks if there's at least, yeah, this basically is going to labels to apply is filtering out only the labels valid.
So should we remove this criteria from the applicable entirely? Because I think we always want the bot to either apply some labels or apply some labels and respond to say some of them I can't apply, or worst case scenario, respond to say I can't apply any of these labels.
Yeah, I would introduce a new method to get the list of all the labels, because if a user add, for example, add GitLab bot label and doesn't add any label after, that wouldn't be applicable.
Yeah, unless, I mean, I'm on the fence a little bit, but I'd even be half tempted to say we could still respond to say that, you didn't provide any labels and you need to. But yeah, maybe it's slightly easier just not to respond. But I know some people would prefer an explanation of, well, it didn't do anything. Why didn't it do anything?
Yes, but even then we should still add a new method to get out all the labels so that we know if there's actually a label.
Yep.
So I
mean, to be honest, this would just be an alias of command.args event, right?
Probably.
So what you've got in line 95 essentially, so we could
I was looking at the suggestion.
And then we can replace any references.
How do we want to do this? Because I don't really want to take over this MR from Shivam.
Well, my suggestion would be that we go through. We've have this conversation. I presume we're recording. We haven't hit live stream, but we'll upload it afterwards. And I would suggest that you save a patch and upload the patch to the MR.
Okay.
So you can then choose to apply some or all of the patch. You can rewatch the video if you're unsure, or you can ask us any questions And we'll post a little summary on the MR afterwards as well, just along with the patch to sort of say, well, these were our suggestions and why we made those suggestions. Does that sound helpful?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
Following that.
So, okay, let's see.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, the things that we have done is we introduced a new function, a new method to get all the arguments from the GitLab label command.
Okay.
That we can use that to both get the list of the labels of only the labels that we can apply, and with this one instead we get the list of all the arguments, because we have three different scenarios. Like we have all the labels could be applied, some of the labels could be applied, or none, because maybe we don't even have a label.
Correct.
So we have to remove this condition from the applicable check, because if there are no label whatsoever, the command wouldn't be applied, so we wouldn't be able to post any message to the user.
Yeah.
And now we have to basically, I would honestly add build the message as we go. Like, for example, this is just putting down my thoughts. Start with an empty message.
Can I just quickly ask? So you're saying that if there are no labels provided, that any labels to apply will cause the bot to just not run?
Yeah.
Is that correct? So that means if you pass, like, I don't know, you do GitLab bot label, but you flip the E and the L around, then that's not a valid command, so it also won't respond to you as well then?
Correct.
So you won't get an error message if you
even
mistype the command. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually wouldn't even get to this point, because if you misspell label, it wouldn't even recognize the command.
Andrew, can you explain again? I didn't understand.
Oh, I was just curious. Line 41.
If
There's
you do this GitLab, what is it? GitLab bot label. See, I misspelled label. Andrew was mentioning that if a user does this, for example, workflow in that, this should be a valid label, but this word was misspelled, so it wouldn't even get to the processor. So we wouldn't be able to give any feedback to the user.
Okay, understood.
I think
that's not actually coming from this.
That's handled elsewhere. What's the point of valid command then if it won't even get there?
It's checking something else. For example, if the current user is part of the community or not. There are some other checks built in for the community processor. It checks if the resource author is posting the message, or the team member, or one of the assignees.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was just curious about the inner workings.
Yeah, no worries. So going back to what I was going to do. So for example, starting with an empty message, if labels empty, something like that. Else, if otherwise, if
I think you probably want something like labels.size is not equal called to so any labels to apply? Have we got? Oh yeah.
Side, some labels are not valid, for example. And the other
Otherwise,
case,
we're happy. Yeah.
otherwise we're happy, so the message.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to talk then. You got a typo on line 48. It needs to be labels dot size. No, at the beginning of the line.
Oh,
Before else, I mean after else. Yeah.
yeah. So then I would do something like post a label command.
No, I'd keep the if for the post label command because you only want to post the label command if there's at least one label to apply. Then I would have a separate if to say if message is not blank or nil or something, then post the not valid command.
Why don't we use one single add comment call and passing the whole message? Like if the message is empty, this will be only the quick action for adding the labels.
Yeah, I think we could do. I feel like the other option would be maybe a little bit more verbose, but yeah, I don't see that. Yeah, no, that sounds fair enough.
So if we do this,
Yeah, okay.
And here we do this. So basically we have an empty message by default. And if there are no labels or if we have some invalid labels, then we can of course build the logic here to get the list of invalid labels and stuff like that.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, this should work.
The only, and I might be wrong here, my Ruby game still isn't still isn't expert level, but I think you might even be able to get rid of removing line 45. Unlike C# that we're more familiar with, I think even by defining message inside an if block, it's still valid outside of the if block. Give it a try, and if it doesn't work, then
I hope it doesn't work.
That sounds like very old PHP, and yeah, I shudder as well.
Wouldn't that message could be passed as a function argument? I think that would also work.
You mean like
The same way, yeah, the post label command this message. So I think that would also work.
like this?
No,
For
no,
example.
in the process part. So I think you don't have to like define the like initialize the message as an empty string. Instead of like you can use it as a function argument. The same way the post label command here it is used.
yeah,
On
I'm not sure
52,
if
it can be similar on 44 also.
yeah, I'm not sure if it's exactly what you mean, but you could just take out the entire line 46 to 50 and make that a method of its own.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I see what you mean.
So that could be called def message, and the message definition could be basically line 46 to 50.
Yeah, that could be also good. Yeah, that could be also used. I think
the message, the user.
And then you don't even need the assignment on line 71, and yeah.
But this would return nil.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
so. We can use that and operator here.
We don't really need it because we are passing the nil string to the, where is it? The post label command, which is building the string, and I guess nil would become an empty string.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think that you could even not pass this in anymore, right? You don't even need to pass this argument around because the method can be called directly now.
Yeah, you're right. Build message user. At this point, I like it this way better.
Wow. The dynamicity changes everything.
Sorry?
Dynamicity of the code changes everything. Yeah, like as we are working, it changes a lot many things.
It's interesting, like, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but certainly on behalf of myself, like, I've been doing Ruby for a reasonable amount of time, but I don't consider myself an expert. So that'd be interesting when we go through the review stages, if anyone sort of has any feedback around whether there is any preference of doing it the way we've done it now, or kind of passing the object around. But I like what we've done now. It's nice small methods for each thing. Technically, they would be unit testable, but they're private methods, and we're just going to test the kind of thing as a whole.
I kept them private for one reason.
Yeah. But that looks good. So
yeah, I'm not too sure about the empty. Is that a method for an array?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like,
Yeah, I
can we
believe
use
so.
that
Yeah.
exclamation mark?
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
So at this point, we should try running the test, which is of course going to fail due to the changes that we made.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
this
going
is
to
even actually this test case is also not correct, I guess.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, I was actually working with that only.
go. Oh. Yes, yeah.
That's a random alias.
What's the command to do that?
SDF set.
Set local, no. Set
Remote.
the nope. Let's do this manually.
I think just ASDF install Ruby 3.0. Where it's giving you a command to run there, right?
That wouldn't that install Ruby?
Isn't that what you want?
You could use command here. ASDF use Ruby.
Oh, that one. Use. No.
I think you're right. Local. I think local is what you want. ASDF local Ruby 3.0.5.
Oh,
Is
that's
not
why.
installed. Yeah.
Oh, you wanted 3.1. Yeah. I thought you were trying to tell it to use 3.1.4 rather than installing 3.0.5, but
Yeah, but I checked the Ruby version file inside of the repo, and that's using 3.0.5.
okay.
Yeah, I tried this using like setting up Ruby on a Ubuntu system, but I failed very big. Like I couldn't set it up properly on a Ubuntu system.
I mean, I guess I could switch it over to 3.1.4.
Yeah, I'd expect either to work. But...
Actually, I'm sorry. I'm making everybody work a lot right now.
No.
I had no
No
intention.
worries.
This is again, is it good? Like we'll make sure we title the video appropriately and try and maybe add it to some docs somewhere for a kind of how to create or how to modify a processor. It's quite helpful.
I think could not find. Yeah, you need to run bundle install command.
Yeah.
Just tip, you can just run bundle if you're lazy like me.
Yeah, I would have saved 8 characters.
Exactly.
You can just write bundle.
Yeah,
Yep.
so yarn and
Oh.
bundle are both the same.
Oh.
You don't have to do yarn
Game changer.
install.
I knew that
You
for
don't-
yarn.
Yeah, yeah. Just
I've been
for the
typing
lazy
bundle
ones
install
amongst
like a
us,
loser.
50%
Yeah,
shorter, that saves 50% of your time and you're twice as efficient from then on,
That's
James.
true. That's true. I'm gonna head off. Nice to
Have a great day,
see you
James.
guys.
See you later on.
See
Thanks
ya.
for joining.
Bye-bye.
Catch you later.
This is I guess I will wait for 3.0.5.
Well, while you're waiting for that, I don't know if I think Carlos joined during the call and Michael as well. Do you want to see if either of them want to say hello? And
Yeah, absolutely.
fine if you just want to lurk. But hi, Michael.
Hey, good morning. I'm based in Ottawa, Canada, so it's 6:45 a.m. here.
Oh,
Nice, nice. We
Yeah,
appreciate you taking time out of
yeah.
your morning
By
then.
by chance I was awake, so I'm like, oh, I'll hop on and see if I can get some advice. So this is my first hackathon with GitLab. I thought it was pretty cool. I picked up some A11y tests. You know, Lee, I think was it you? No, I think it was Marco actually. No. Somewhat. I'm sorry, I have morning brain, but someone was really nice to help me out with getting situated. But I was wondering, since this is pairing, I don't know if I could get some feedback and maybe like even get some merge requests approved.
We can certainly take a look.
Sure.
Yeah,
Let
absolutely.
me drop
Yeah, if you've got an MR link or yeah, something. No,
I wonder what
perfect.
that'll pull up. I don't know if that'll show up all my merge requests
Oh, that
from
looks good. So
and there's one in particular that I wanted feedback on. A lot of these were quick wins, so like I'm sure there's nothing much to say, but there was one that I think was a little, let me see. I think it was this one. No, sorry, 1 second while I find it.
it's all right, no worries.
Was it I think it was
So GitLab UI. Okay, so they're all in GitLab UI. So I think I'm a little bit familiar. I'm not overly confident or familiar with the GitLab UI project, but I know it a little bit.
Yeah.
It looks like so the pipeline's green on one and on the other it's amber, sort of like pass with warnings, which is quite reassuring.
Yeah. And now that I think about it, I think some of them I just have to refresh. I'm assuming that was actually one question I had for like getting it approved, that I just had to refresh from main. I think some of them need that. I don't know if that's the
Oh,
only
to
thing stopping it.
rebase.
Yeah, rebase rather. Right.
So I don't, forgive me if you already know this, but you can rebase through the UI if you want as well, which makes life quite easy.
Yeah.
So you can use a quick action just by adding a comment to the merge requests, like /rebase. So that can make life nice and easy as well.
So just literally a comment of /rebase.
Yep, and you should
Oh,
see
okay.
when you start typing that the autocomplete comes up, or it should, I hope.
That's great. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, I'm not like looking at one of the MRs. I'm not overly familiar with exactly what we're so check A11Y. So what does this check A11Y command function do?
Yeah, and that was one thing I wanted to get feedback on, because I never like, it's good ideas, but I never know if it's like a good idea to implement. But like, it's a Cypress command. It's a custom Cypress
Okay.
command. Oh no, that's from Cypress Axe, which Axe is the you guys are using for like accessibility tests.
Cool.
And then they use that to make a custom Cypress command. But I noticed there was like no TypeScript support for like any of the end-to-end tests. I was thinking about making an issue on that, but then again, I don't know if that was like intentional.
It's always worth creating an issue to discuss it. Yeah, I know. There's but the only project I'm vaguely familiar with where we're using TypeScript at the moment, I think, is the Web IDE. I know, I'm not familiar with us using it anywhere else, but yeah, it looks like you've got we got a reviewer assigned, and at least one of the MRs has already had approval. Although we do tend to go through 2 rounds, like a reviewer approval and then a maintainer approval before it's merged. But yeah, if you want to rebase, by all means, but otherwise, I think if you wait for the reviewer feedback, like fingers crossed, like they don't look overly contentious or controversial.
Okay. Yeah.
So just like, yeah, adding that coverage and improving that project's kind of accessibilities, or the coverage for it, I guess, would be more accurate, is great. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. And then the last one was, I think I put it's the last link there for like this, I don't know if this, I created like a function for like negative tests because I noticed that there were like, for example, dark mode, that was like a really easy test to do to catch an accessibility violation.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing though is that like when I look at it, the original function, they had like a terminal log there, and I don't know, I just couldn't think of like a way. Then again, that function, that terminal log is there for like if there are any violations,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't think of a way to implement that in a clean and easy way for like the negative case one.
Gotcha. So what I would suggest, you've probably already done it now. I can see you've got a comment on the MR. The only thing I'd suggest is if we convert that into a thread, then it'll ensure that somebody actually responds to that. But yeah, add any like comments to your own code, to sort of say if you've got questions, like I've done this, but I'm not 100% sure if it's the best approach, or if we've got any other approaches that are documented, or and again, that might even be something else that they suggest, or you could suggest, okay, now you've created this or set this precedent, so to speak, should we document this somewhere as well?
Okay.
But you've already called out, I think, what you said there on that MR. You sort of said about changing from light to dark. You created an accessibility violation. So right, yeah. So this is why you've created it. It's less likely to be regressions. Yeah. Yeah, so I think if you've got any sort of questions specifically about that, or even if it's just like, does this seem like a good idea, and should we document this somewhere? It sounds good to me, not knowing a great deal about the project. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and I see Andrew put something in here from 4 years ago about not supporting TypeScript. It's funny because that's the argument today for what is it, Turbo Repo, right? It's interesting that a lot of people choose not to do the overhead for that. But yeah,
Yeah, I
maybe I'll
think I've asked other people before about using TypeScript in like the main GitLab project. And I know there are people that are interested in it, but I just think the amount of work required to add it as a dependency and to port things over is just huge for a project of GitLab size.
yeah.
But maybe
Yeah.
GitLab UI would be significantly simpler.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't see any other, like I could only see that one issue about that mentions TypeScript at all. I don't know if you opened up a new TypeScript issue saying, hey, I'm happy to start implementing TypeScript in parts. What do you think the best way of doing this would be? And see what the
Yeah, just revisiting. Because certainly in 4 years, I think different people might be involved, and life might be easier, and yeah, there might be a different outcome. So it wouldn't hurt to restart that conversation.
Cool. And then that would probably just be how do I like advocate that issue? So like obviously, like for example, the one you linked, Andrew, is just an issue under GitLab UI, but like will that get any love and attention just like that, or
So where is it you want to do the GitLab, the TypeScript stuff? Is it just for
Well,
the
yeah,
UI, or do you mean in general?
yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, so just in the context of what I was doing for this hackathon, it would just be like A11E tests. Because like as those custom functions scale, I imagine that TypeScript would probably be a good early investment now, considering that there's only like a handful of custom commands. So like it would be in that context. But I don't know if, it's then again, I don't know if like adding it to just end-to-end tests would involve adding it to the entire repo kind of thing. If that makes sense.
So I would say that the those who responded to the original issue that Andrew linked, so Paul, Enrique, just Paul and Enrique actually are both still part of the GitLab team. So I definitely, if you create a new issue or if you want to reopen and revisit this one, then I would definitely ping Paul and Enrique. I wonder if we've got a group for GitLab UI sort of maintainers or experts, or let me just have a
I've
look.
seen some ads, but they don't look like they don't appear like hyperlinked. I don't know if that's like an internal ad for like
So
but that was
I'm
for the
just
accessibility group.
we've got a GitLab org/maintainers/GitLab UI group. So that would be quite a good. There's I think 13 in that group, I believe. So that would be quite a good group to ping to mention. And I hope that you'd at least get a little bit of involvement. If you don't, MR coaches or me or Marco or anyone on Discord or whatever, and we can then maybe ping on the internal Slack as well, just on like the front end channel or somewhere.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll bring that up, and that would be kind of cool to set up and see and do kind of thing. But yeah,
Awesome. No,
yeah,
that's
that's
great.
it.
Really,
That's
really
all.
appreciate you joining the hackathon and working on that project as well, because we do have a lot of focus on the main monolith, the GitLab repo, but it's nice to see some diversity.
Yeah, cool. Oh, and last question. And then some of these issues, like they'll always like they're always seeking contribute, like they're always there for someone like me to contribute to, right? It's not only the hackathon that I can do it in.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. You can contribute at any point, and as much as we love the hackathon and it obviously inspires and gets a lot of people on board. Yeah, ideally we get consistent contributions. So at any point you're free to dip in, and generally it can be like a good idea to just ping someone on an issue beforehand to make sure that it's still up to date. It might be that it was created a couple of years ago and it's not valid anymore, that component's like maybe being deprecated, or that there's a better solution or whatever. But yeah, no, that'd be great.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna try and get some sleep for the day, but I just wanted to get those things out of the way. Yeah. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. And thanks for jumping on. And yeah, hopefully catch you in future. If you ever want us to do an ad hoc session, more your time zone, just shout and we'll spin something up.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Michael. Catch you later.
Bye.
Take care. See ya.
Sorry
So
to digress there, but I think it's nice that we could cover a couple of bases. So yeah, back to fill us in on what you did while we were distracted, Marco.
One change that I made to the post label command is actually to add the quick action to only if there are actually any label to add or remove. Otherwise, it would build the message like, okay, the content to the user and then /label and then nothing if there wasn't any label to apply.
Does that matter though?
It's nicer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I I wouldn't be fussed either way, to be honest. But I don't think there's, yeah, like you say, at least you're only issuing a valid command. You're not issuing a sort of nonsensical one. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Then on the processor, on the spec, I had to change basically all the event is applicable, is not applicable to event is applicable, because right now the event is basically always applicable unless the user is not an assignee or the author or stuff like that.
Yep.
Because this test case was checking that the event wasn't applicable if there were not allowed labels, but we now changed that.
Yeah, I would
And
get rid of this entire context altogether, to be honest.
I would keep at least 2 tests, because we want to make sure that when there is no label, that the event is applicable and we get the expected message.
Okay, yeah.
Same thing goes for when, but to be honest,
But I
that
definitely don't think you need the 8 or however many you've got in there.
yeah, that's true, but then
You would move them into the process tests, right? To have
yes, yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. Let's get rid of this. So now for the process method, I changed the shared example for message posting, because we now have to pass in the expected message. And I had to format this a little bit differently because we introduced a couple of new lines that basically broke all the other tests. So 7 tests out of 11 failures were fixed by just adding this new line, because the expected command, the expected message was different from what we were doing before. But now we do have a couple more failures because unlabeled, when command is unlabeled, when label is only allowed to be added. Oh, okay. Because this is only able to be added, event is not applicable at this point because it's different. And it shouldn't post any message. And that was an error from me for adding that.
Still, I think.
What's that? What's that one? When
Oh.
author is a community member, event is not. Why would it not be applicable?
Because there are some labels that can only be applied and not removed. Because this is testing the unlabeled.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be testing that the event is applicable, would we? Or not applicable? That's in the applicable tests.
Yeah, this would be applicable, but with a different message.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's actually yet another case.
So I would just switch all of those event applicable tests to the what have you got? You've got shared example or something. No, you don't need to test that in here, because we're testing the process method. We're not testing the applicable method.
Yeah, but the applicable method should always return false, because even in this case, we should return a message to the user saying that that label cannot be removed.
Yep. Yeah, but we just don't need to test that the event is applicable. That's not what we're testing in the process tests.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. So you would have something like this.
Exactly, yeah.
Message posting, expected labels, none. Comment unlabeled. We also have to update this to
I think
we have
the
to do this.
implementation might need the like the person to entirely go through the all the code bases, right?
Sorry,
Yes.
didn't understand what you mean.
I was asking like the way you are implementing everything in a fast way. So I was like, yeah, you know the code base. So the person who is like contributing has to also understand the entire code base before like implementing us working on a single small code.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. Something that's a simple feels like a simple change to the processor from a testing point of view is fairly significant. What we probably should have tried, maybe after we've finished and we've saved a patch, we could revert the code and we could maybe ask like code suggestions, or probably not code suggestions, but maybe GitLab Duo. I don't know if GitLab Duo would be any good at trying to refactor this test suite.
Okay, understood.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
because I
the
think
way
I can see it has got a lot of work under on you also just for a simple change, I think.
yeah, no, it's
To
yeah,
be
it's
honest, this is not really a simple change because it involves quite a bit of refactoring, at least on the tests.
but then I think that's where it's confusing, right? Because I would definitely say this is a quick win in terms of the implementation and the problem that we're solving, and the solution is quick. All we want to do is feedback when the label, one or more labels, can't be applied. Simple.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's just because we want to write solid code, and we want to write solid tests to ensure that we don't break anything and we don't regress in the future. So yeah, and you do really need to have a bit of an understanding of how we do our tests in this project, and it's very similar for the GitLab project, but essentially we write a number of test cases for different code paths for each of the methods, and most importantly the applicable method and the process method. So the applicable method is only testing one what would I call it, one method. Now it's just saying, well, is it a valid command? So technically we only really need two cases for that now, like one that returns true and one that returns false, but we can have a few other permutations in there if we want. And then for the process command, we really need to look at all the code paths again and think, okay, well, we've got the code path where there's all the labels can be applied, the code path where none of the labels can be applied, and the code path where some of the labels can be applied. So I would expect to end up with at least three, but I don't know. We'll see what we do actually end up with in a minute.
Understood.
Okay.
Probably this is made a little bit more complex as well by the fact that we've tried to keep it dry, or it's been dried up in the past, which means that there's shared examples which again look a bit confusing. And on top of that, although it's been quite nice the way it's been done, but I think the way that we're doing the tests is by kind of stubbing network connections, which again is far from simple, but because we've got simple methods to do it, makes life a bit easier.
Correct.
What?
Actually, I have sent I've shared a issue link related to the one like this which one I was working. I
Yep.
think so. If like I think this is the same thing which I was working on. So yeah, just wanted to like make sure that we are not like working just like what I meant to say is like we are doing this much work, and at the end we get to know that the entire process which we are implementing is not even related to the ticket, like the issue that we are implementing. So
No,
yeah,
no,
the world
these
shouldn't go like down. So yeah.
no, these tests are definitely off the back of the change that we've made. So before there was a bunch of additional tests against the applicable method because there were two conditions in the applicable method. Now there's only one condition. We've
Okay.
significantly reduced the number of tests for the applicable
Okay.
method. But now there's significantly more code paths
Okay.
in the process method because
Yeah.
we've got all labels can be applied, some labels can be applied, or no labels can be applied. So we just need to create a few more test cases in the process test methods.
Okay. Okay.
And I think we're getting
I
close. All right.
Yeah, I can't really understand why it's complaining about the requests because it should be stopped already.
So, okay, if you scroll down, it normally says if there are any stubs just below that. So it says registered stubs. Up a little bit further. Yeah, that's registered. So,
Oh,
does the URL and the body match what what's the error just slightly above? Do they match?
no, they don't match because here I have some labels are not valid, and down here I have,
Two new lines,
So
oh,
it's
and then
actually
label
trying to
lines.
add the security label for some reason.
yeah, and it's this part that's wrong.
Okay.
So uh, expected labels, because this was building the message from both expected labels or labels, but labels is
Okay.
mm,
What's the purpose of supporting expected labels and labels?
I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe
We can
because
use a console or something so we can check what these values are, and I think we can use it based on that.
what
well,
do you
I
think
know
about
what the
just getting
values
rid
are.
of labels for now and just handling supported labels and figuring out what we'll see what tests fail, I guess, and then we can sort of see
Yeah, I
why.
think that the only reason for this is to avoid having to put the expected labels everywhere,
Yeah.
which is backfiring.
Oh no, you're defaulting to near. What about um what if you undo the change you just made, but instead you pass expected labels and pass an empty array in?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be a solution. Uh, an
Just
empty array.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Will the no, that won't work because this is an OR, and
Yeah,
the
but
label.
or is only for nil values, I think. I don't think or will replace an empty array.
You could check the length of the array.
But if we pass in an empty array, this would build this because it would pass this as true.
Oh, we don't need this if anymore, do we?
No, this is something that I added because we after this change, we're adding the quick action only if there's at least one label to apply.
Can you just go back to the actual code for a sec? Post label command. Okay. Yeah, so go back to
This is definitely backfiring.
We can use the length part, like if the array dot length is present or is greater than zero, some like
but
then I think
I don't think that's what we want to do though, is it? What we want what I mean, would it make life easier to go back to my original suggestion and get rid of that if from the original code and just leave the empty quick action?
Try like this.
Yeah, essentially.
And now I can pass in this as an empty array, and that should work. Yeah, two
still
failures.
two failures. I think this one worked though. No, it didn't. Still,
Yeah, it worked. This one.
Okay, it worked.
No, two failures. This is
The new line, they are adding two new lines and label like this one.
oh, it's stubbing.
The message is not right.
No, this because this is not right.
Or
You could do
If we get rid of this as well,
yeah.
let's see what it does.
this hit and trial method. That's still the same.
So now this is building. Yeah, why it's becoming an empty array like this on the message as well?
What do you normally pass in for expected labels? Just an array or?
No,
No,
a
it's a
string.
string, that's why. So just pass in blank then, I guess, not an empty array.
Yeah.
These things don't matter.
And now this complains because
Probably
we
just a white space issue or something silly like that.
no, it's expected. It's command. We're using unlabel here.
LABEL, LABLE.
Unlabel.
Wouldn't it be EL?
Oh yeah, EL, not LE.
LABEL.
So funny that we talked about that exact typo earlier on.
Yeah, it
Yay!
worked. Finally, congrats.
Teamwork.
So this is only the start though, because we have to yet cover the right messages and build the right messages on the code.
Okay.
It's at least a start.
Yep.
How do you mean what? How do you mean? Sorry.
Because we are only, where is it? Only saying no labels specified or some labels are not valid. Are
Okay,
we
so
okay
we
with
just
this?
need one additional test where all of the labels are valid.
No, when all the labels are valid, it should be an empty message.
Yeah. So we just need to add that case, yeah?
I don't think so, because that should already be covered by the positive tests in here. For example, this post message.
Cool. Okay,
We
so
probably might need something like with valid and invalid labels. For example, group import that works. What could we set?
But this is in with a context block when command is not at the beginning of a new comment. I don't think you really need to include all of these examples within that context.
No, you're right, but we can do it here outside when setting both valid and invalid labels.
I think
Group?
this is still in that block or not?
No, it's outside. Because this is closed in here.
Okay, yep.
One label that's not valid. I can't think of any label that's not valid.
Wasn't security one of them or not?
I guess that A, B, C, D is not a valid label. So this should be the expected label. Expected message is that. And that's all passing.
Awesome.
Okay. And when there are no labels, when labels needed.
Just to be a nitpick on line 172, do you want to change unvalid to invalid?
Okay.
Can you blame English language for that one, Marco?
Yes, I can. No worries.
Intentions are same, spellings are
Exactly.
different.
Exactly.
Let's see if this is all green. It is. Okay. Now, how do I create the diff?
I do git diff pipe. Yeah, exactly. And I normally would do tilde forward slash. Like what it just pop it in, but you can pop it wherever. But I normally just pop it in my home directory, if you know what I mean. Yeah, yeah, that's as good as anything.
Okay, and now
Maybe even do a what is
upload
it,
the whole file.
git stash or something like that as well, just in case. Like I always get a bit scared when I just so you've got several copies in different places in case something goes pear-shaped.
Yeah, good point. And so let's go to
Git stash doesn't work with the newly created files. That's the
Oh, well, today I learned. Thanks for sharing. Is there a better way of sort of stashing when you got new files, or?
I think
creating
only
account.
one thing is that what you can do is either delete, like if you are using VS Code, you can like go into the changes and there you can like mention like there is a version control extension that is being used in VS Code, and there you can remove that file manually. Apart from that, there is nothing like an actual option I think Git provides.
Oh,
Or you
that's
can use
annoying.
Git restore or Git reset, but those also I don't think they delete the newly created files.
So
So
maybe creating a new temporary branch would be the safer way in future. But I'm confident that that patch will have everything you need in there. And I'll in case you probably would already, Marco, but if you want to mention me on here, then I'll make sure I
Yeah.
add the video link afterwards.
it's like actually I've just started. This is the first time I've like started on a like free, not a freelance, but a open source contribution.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't have like much knowledge how to like work or how to perform or have a better, like, what I can say,
Uh,
follow code practices. So yeah.
Yeah. Have you done anything or much with Ruby before yourself, or
No, I'm a like Node.js and yeah, that person.
so like again, I haven't got quite so much of an excuse. I have been using Ruby for quite a few years now, but
Okay.
still I came from more C# and .NET and JavaScript and HTML, etc. And Ruby's
Okay.
also like um quite a, I don't know, different language. It takes some getting used to, so to speak. So there's various magic and interesting practices, and even behavior like where you don't have to return is something that took me a while to to kind of get to grips with. But I think, like you said there, the change itself here was quite simple. The writing tests to support that change was the much more complex part. But I hope that what we've gone through here today, and with this recording and with the patch that Marco has provided, like it makes sense, and you can maybe take a bit of time to just have a look through, see if you want to ask any additional questions, if any of it doesn't make sense. But if you're happy, essentially apply that patch. I think there's some comments still in there. I noticed bits that we put in and then commented out. So I guess they just need to be stripped out. And then if you're happy, we can pass that to someone to review.
Sure, sure, sure. I'll work on the patch that you have provided and raise a PR again for the changes made.
Yeah, so you can just push another commit to that existing merge request that you raised, like that,
Yeah,
and then you can mark it as ready because it's in draft, and we can go from there.
yeah, sure, sure, sure. I'll let you know about the status, code status. Sure.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for your contribution. And, thanks for joining the session. Marco, thanks for driving, and yeah, see some of you later in the week.
yeah, and if we don't, have a great
Oh,
holiday.
happy holidays.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
Take care,
Bye
everyone.
bye.
Cheers.
Bye bye.